How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile for N'Golo Kante. I initially did his profile on March 29th when his 31st birthday was, but while trying to get the videos up, I did lose the initial recording, so I am going to make an updated version. But in the meantime, we are getting ready to enter N'Golo Kante's age 31 season with this Chelsea team, as this will of course be his seventh season with the organization. As of right now, he is regarded by many of his peers and of course coaches, fans, and of course critics alike as one of the best midfielders in the world. He was just named to the FIFA Pro World 11 in 2021, being regarded as one of the three best midfielders in the world, and that is the second time that he was named. The last time he was named was when he helped France win the World Cup in 2018, just to show you how important N'Golo Kante is as a player. And standing in at 5'6", just to give you a picture of how dynamic and how amazing he really is. He is one of the reasons that his teams have been able to find success, considering you have 11 players, including a goalie, working at once. I do think having a strong player in the middle is very crucial, and N'Golo Kante has been a player that's proven it for club and country. So without further ado, I'm actually going to take you from the beginning of his professional career, as he is, of course, from Paris. He was born in Paris. He was approached by the Malian team to play for them, but he ended up playing for France. But he would go on to make his debut for the Boulogne team, as Boulogne was initially a Division II, a League Two French team. In his age 20 season, he would go on and make his very first match appearance, playing 12 minutes for a team that would end up finishing with the 19th best record in Ligue 1. Following that one season, he would go on to join Caen, as Caen was a League Two side when they initially joined him. In his very first season, he would go on and play most of his games, as he would go on and help Caen earn their way up to Ligue 1, as his very first season in Caen was his age 22 season there. In that season, he would start 36 of the 38 matchups he played. They would finish third in Ligue 2, and of course, they would find a way to earn their way right up to Ligue 1. And of course, N'Golo Kante, being 22, having to work his way up was a big part of the reason that Caen would make it all the way up to Ligue 1, where they were up until 2019, until they got relegated again. But following that first season at Caen, he would go on to play a full Ligue 1 season, helping them finish 13th in France's top flight. In that season, while starting 36 of the 37 games, he did go on to finish with 2 goals and 5 assists. While playing his 2 seasons at Caen, he would go on to recover the ball more times over the season than any other player in Europe. I'm taking this just right off his Wikipedia page. Following his 2-season stint at Caen, he would go on and play at Leicester City, as he was scouted by Steve Walsh. He was going to help Leicester City make a run for the Premier League, as in his loan city in Leicester City in his age 24 season in 2015-16. He would help Leicester City win the Premier League title, as of course when Leicester City had won the Premier League in 2015-16, that would be the first time in their franchise's history that they would ever win the title, as they had been promoted from the championship division from just a couple of years prior. So, of course, it was a very historic season. In N'Golo Kante's loan season, he would go on and score a goal and add 4 assists. That his 4 assists are the most assists he's ever added in a Premier League season. And of course, in addition to winning the Premier League season, they would go on and get knocked out of their domestic cups that year. But following his loan season at Leicester City, he would establish himself as a good enough player to be first moved up to the French national team prior to Euros for the 2016 summer. He would go on to make the Premier League Team of the Year, and he would go on and sign a 5-year deal with Chelsea over the summer. But during that summer, he would go on and compete with France at the Euros in 2016 after finally getting promoted. In the 2016 Euros, France would make it all the way to the final, as in the group stage, they would beat Romania and Albania, drawing with Switzerland. In the round of 16, France would end up beating the Republic of Ireland 2-1 off of Griezmann's brace. They would go on to beat Iceland 5-2. They would go on to beat Germany 2-0 in the semifinals, as Griezmann scored both of those goals in that game. They would lose in extra time 1-0 to Portugal in that final, as they would find themselves very close, as N'Golo Kante would find himself playing in he found himself playing in 4 of the games in that run. He did add an assist. Following his 2016 run, that would see him take Leicester to the Premier League title, something that not many people could have ever seen coming, and helping France making all the way to the final of the Euros just to lose. He would go on and play his first of now 6 seasons at Chelsea in London. His very first season there would be his age 25 season in 2016-17. His first season there, he would start all 35 games in a season where Chelsea would win the Premier League, as N'Golo Kante was a back-to-back Premier League winner, this time for 2 different teams. Chelsea would go on and win it in 2016-17 for the second time in a 3-year span. Chelsea has not won the Premier League since 2017. They would get to the final of the FA Cup, as they ended up losing to Arsenal this year 2-1. So they would have a very strong side, of course, because N'Golo Kante was on the side. N'Golo Kante would add a goal and an assist. Not to mention that outside of that, Chelsea would go on and qualify for Champions League the qualifying year, or the following year. Following the season in which they would go on and win the Prem, they would go on and finish as runners-up in the FA Community Shield, as they would draw with Arsenal in the regular time, but they would end up losing on penalty kicks. But in addition to that, in N'Golo Kante's second season in Chelsea, his age 26 season in 2017-18, he would start all 34 of the games he played in a season in which Chelsea would finish 5th in the Premier League. However, they would go on and win the FA Cup that year. They would beat Manchester United 1-0, as the lone goal of that game was a Eden Hazard penalty kick. Additionally, they would get knocked out of the semifinals of the English Football League Cup, and when they got a chance to compete on the Champions League stage, they would lose in the round of 16. The team that would knock them out would be Barcelona. Barcelona would lose in the quarterfinals to Roma. Roma would lose in the semifinals to Liverpool. Liverpool would lose in the Champions League final to Real Madrid that year. But that would, of course, be N'Golo Kante's first ever taste of the Champions League. Following that 2017-18 season, he would go on to compete with France at the World Cup, and in his lone appearance at the World Cup, he would be instrumental in helping France go on and secure the victory. He would play in 7 games, as France would ease their way through group stage. In group stage, they would beat Australia and Peru. They would draw against Denmark. That was the only game in the tournament that they didn't win. In the round of 16, France would beat Argentina 4-3, as Mbappe scored a brace in that game. France would go on and beat Uruguay 2-0 in the quarterfinal. They would beat Belgium 1-0 in the semifinal, and then they would go on to beat Croatia 4-2, as this would be the first time that France has won the World Cup since 1998, the second time that France has ever won it in its nation's history. So, of course, N'Golo Kante was a big part of that. So, that was while he was establishing himself as one of the best defenders in the world. Following that 2018 effort, He would go on to be named to the FIFA Pro World 11 for the first time in his career, being named as one of the best three midfielders alongside Luka Modric, who won the Ballon d'Or that year for Real Madrid and for Croatia. And he was named alongside Eden Hazard, who was his teammate at Chelsea. Following that 2018 World Cup summer, he would return to Chelsea for his third season there. In his age 27 season in 2018-19, he would start all 36 of the matchups he played in a season in which Chelsea would go on and finish third in the Premier League. Within England, they would finish fifth in the fifth round of the FA Cup. They would go on and finish as runners-up in the EFL and the Community Shield. First off, in the Premier League itself, he would go on and finish with 4 goals and 4 assists. His 4 goals are the most goals that he's ever put together in a season, and his 4 assists are tied for the most. His 8 goal contributions in 2018-19 are the most that he's ever been able to put together. Considering he's a center defensive mid, I mean, of course, that's incredible. In addition to that, he would go on to score a goal in the League Cup season, as they would get really close to winning all those other cups that year. In that season, in the English Football League Cup, they would lose in the final to Manchester City off of penalty kicks. They would also lose in the Community Shield that year to Manchester City, as Sergio Aguero would score the 2 goals in that game. The one trophy that Chelsea would win in 2018-19 would be the Europa League, as they would end up beating Arsenal 4-1 in that final, as Eden Hazard would score 2 goals in that brace. That would be the very first continental trophy that he would win for club while playing with Chelsea in 2018-19. It was Europa League. Following that season, he would go on and help Chelsea in his 4th season there, in his age 28 season in 2019-20. He would start 20 of the 22 games he played in a season in which Chelsea would finish 4th in the Prem. This was the season that COVID would delay the end of the year, but they would go on and qualify for Champions League the next year. In that Premier League season, N'Golo Kante would finish with 3 goals on the year. This would be his lone year in the Premier League that he did not finish with an assist. Additionally, he would go on and help Chelsea finish as runners-up in the FA Cup. This year, they would lose in the final to Arsenal 2-1, as Aubameyang would score both goals in this matchup. They would end up losing in the 4th round of the EFL Cup. After winning Europa League at the beginning of the year, they would end up losing in the UEFA Super Cup to Liverpool on penalty kicks. And as they did qualify for Champions League this year, they would get knocked out in the round of 16, as the team that would knock them out in the previous round, Bayern Munich, would go on to win the 2020 Champions League. After the round of 16, it was single game elimination, but Chelsea would not make it there, as they did face the strongest side in the tournament that year. But following that 2019-2020 season, this would transition into N'Golo Kante's 5th season with the Chelsea Football Club. In his 5th season in London, in his age 29 year, he would start 24 of the 30 Premier League matches he played for a Chelsea side that would finish 4th in the Premier League for the 2nd year in a row. That year in the Premier League, N'Golo Kante would finish with 2 assists, as he did not finish with a goal. This is the lone season in his Premier League career, in his stint, that he has gone goalless. In addition to that, he was able to help Chelsea finish as runners-up in the FA Cup. This year, they would end up losing to Leicester City 1-0, as Tielemans' goal would make sure that Chelsea were runners-up for the 2nd years in a row. In the EFL Cup, they would lose in the round of 4 for the 2nd year in a row. This year, the only trophy that they would win would be the Continental Champions League that had been chasing them that they have been chasing. So, they would win it for the 2nd time in their club's history, as in 2001, they would go all the way to the final and beat Manchester City in the final. It would be Kai Havertz's goal that helped win it at the very end. And of course, Chelsea has not won Champions League since 2021. They are the last English side to have won Champions League. Following that 2021 season, he would go on and compete with France at the 2020 Euros. The 2020 Euros had, of course, been delayed because of COVID, but in 2020, France would make it out of the group stage after beating Germany and drawing with Hungary and Portugal. France would get knocked out in the round of 16 off of penalty kicks by Switzerland, as, of course, 2020 would see Italy win in the summer of 2021. This, of course, would transition into N'Golo Kante's sixth and most recent season with Chelsea. In his age 30 season with the club, he started 21 of his 26 Premier League matches in a season in which Chelsea would finish as the third best team in the Prem. Not to mention in the middle of the season in 2021, following the Champions League win, he would go on and make the FIFA Pro 11, being named as one of the best three midfielders in the world for the second time in a 4-year stretch. He was named alongside Jorginho, his Chelsea teammate, who had won the Euros with Italy, and he was named alongside Kevin De Bruyne, the Belgian center attacking mid for Manchester City. But of course, N'Golo Kante would, of course, prove that he was strong this most past season. He would go on and score 2 goals and add 4 assists for that Chelsea side that finished third in the Prem. They would go on and win the UEFA Super Cup going in, as they would beat Villarreal 1-1 off of. They would beat them off penalty kicks, actually. They would go on and win the FIFA Club World Cup this year, as they beat Palmeiras, a Brazilian side, in the final. They would go on and finish as runners-up in the FA Cup for the third year in a row, as they lost to Liverpool on penalty kicks. They would finish as runners-up in the English Football League Cup, as they lost to Liverpool on penalty kicks in this matchup itself. N'Golo Kante would make his penalty kick in this matchup. In addition to the trophies that they would win, in their quest to try to get continental gold, they would end up losing in the quarterfinals of Champions League this past year. They would end up getting knocked out by the Real Madrid side that would win the Champions League, as Real Madrid would have to knock Chelsea out in extra time in order to beat them, as this was one of the nail-biter series. But that, of course, leads us to where we are right now, as N'Golo Kante is ready to embark on his 7th season with the Chelsea Football Club, wearing the number 7. And looking at how France is going to approach this World Cup, they are set to face off for this World Cup that is going to be taking place in Qatar. The World Cup ended up getting delayed, so these matchups haven't been played yet, but by this time next year they will have been played. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in this very next year with N'Golo Kante, because I can't say what happens, but I can say that up until now he has proven that he has established himself as an elite soccer player amongst his peers in this sport, in this world. And I know that people that have watched the World Cup the last time have said so. And if France repeats this year for the World Cup, it will be, I think a big part of it can be attributed to N'Golo Kante. Thanks once again for listening to my piece. I do hope all is well, and I'm sorry that it is so late, but I do eventually plan on getting caught up eventually. With that said, I hope all is well. Thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well. I'm James Sims. This is The Elite, and peace out. I'll catch you with more tomorrow.